new. We don't get to see players of his caliber playing with such inexperienced players. So it's going to be exciting to see.
Just really quickly though, Minnie, also, can you imagine being 16 years old and playing with Mr. Savage?
I wouldn't even know. I mean, Velo probably looked up to Mr. Savage because he's been around for that long. He probably looked up to him in primary school, and now here he is playing with him. So, yeah,
exactly.
it's great to see. I love it.
He's the coolest guy in school. Yeah. Let's talk about Ghost and Tayson, though, because these are two players with a lot of experience under their belts, Mini Minor, and they were huge damage dealers in the play-in. So it'll be interesting to see if they can replicate that tonight.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see what sort of Tayson we're going to get here this season, because if you cast your mind back to 2023, Tayson was performing very well in duos with Mustache. They won that first major, second in the second major, and then Tayson just sort of had this weird run of games. Remember when he was sort of playing with Veno? He had this weird run of games, weird run of seasons, I should say, where they got like 15th and sort of mid-table in terms of results. Pretty mid. Everyone's thinking, oh, maybe Tayson's a little bit washed here, maybe he's kind of lost it, but then kind of had a massive resurgence when it came down to trios, playing with Chicho and Haris, and also Trulex thrown in there as well. They got 2 7s and a top 5 in the majors last year to Carter, so it almost begs the question for me, are we going to get this primed up 2023 and 2025 Tayson, or are we going to have this sort of 15th place Tayson like we got before?
Yeah, in terms of the heats today, I mean, not only are they conned at Squibbly, like their specific drop, but on the west side as well, there's another 2 teams conning each other. But what's even more interesting is we actually look back to Major 3 trios. Ghost ended up qualifying through a victory royale, and that was game 3, I believe. So if we see them qualify through a win, and it's game 3, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Let's bring that lobby list back up and look at some of the other big names we're going to be seeing tonight, because one of those names is Seti. He has gone for the fresh young gun route, although we did see some great performances from Rax last season, and I guess, Dakota, that's a reason why loads of players were wanting to pick him up.
Yeah, so Seti actually was playing with Rax right after Globals, and they were doing good, but with the hype Rax got, being an up-and-coming talent, he actually dropped Seti to play with other players just to come back and play with Seti again. And I respect the honesty from Rax within himself to kind of realize that Seti might have been the best match for him. But how do you think it's actually going to look, Minnie?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this duo can bring. We haven't seen them too much in the set lobbies, really, so we haven't really got to experience what this duo can really bring. But I'm just thinking back to when Cammy and Seti played together. The main complaint and the main problem, I suppose, they had at the end of their playing career when they got sort of 48th in one of those majors was they never had enough firepower. They never had that ability to really frag out in some of these lobbies. And maybe, just maybe, this is the solution here for Seti, to bring in a young fragger in Rax, to bring in a player that so many people are excited about. I'm really interested to see what this team's going to bring now. We haven't seen too much of them. Rax is typically playing with a lot of Italian players as well, so maybe a bit of a change up for him now, I assume, speaking English with Seti. So lots of questions to be answered, and we haven't really got too much evidence for this team of great success yet, but lots of potential.
If they don't qualify tonight for at least consistency, I'm going to eat a Post-it note at the end of the show. Before I sound that horn, I'm going to eat a Post-it note. That's, again, another Frankie Ward guaranteed for you there.
I won't.
Finally, how we've waited so long to talk about this duo, I don't know, because it's Swizzy and Pixie competing tonight. They came second in the play-ins, doing huge numbers and everything except placement. But let's face it, when they go big, they go the distance to Carter, so that's nothing to worry about.
It's been such a strong story for Swizzy. I mean, he had a devastating end to 2023, not being able to compete in Globals. 2024, he had to play without his duo, but after 2 years of tragedy, not giving up, he made it to Global Championship 2025 and got that deserved trophy, Minnie.
Yeah, and it brings us here to this duo in Swizzy and Pixie. And you think, right, first place in the last Global Championships combined with second place in the last Global Championships. This has got to bring flames, right? And we haven't seen that this season. They were okay last season, not too bad in the Divisional Cups. But from what I'm seeing, from what I was looking at, they seem to do better whilst contested at their drop spots. So it's like, now they're uncontested at Dark Dominion. It seems like on paper, this is a team that you'd expect to do well. They're excellent hype players, 2 names that we know all about in the EU region that should be performing well. And they even got second in the play-ins, but we just haven't seen it in the Divisional Cups in those set lobbies. So lots of questions to be answered about these guys as well.
It's interesting because last season, I think they got most of their Div Cup finals. They were in the top 10, but this season, they weren't even top 20 in the first 2 Div Cups. And they have uncontested Dark Dominion. So with such a strong drop spot, I want to see them make something happen today.
These guys got so much experience. They're Lanimals, they're great online in FNCS. This isn't just Div 1 anymore. This is major #1, and I have every faith that these guys are going to be on fire tonight. Let's head over, though, to our commentary duo for game #1 of 5 tonight. It's Taco and 11-2K.
Thank you guys so much. And Levin, it is exciting scenes all around. I mean, we got a little bit of a taste for what's to come throughout the course of this weekend with HEATS 1 yesterday, but for all these teams, it's a brand new day and just about anything goes in this kind of competition.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you talk about the taste we got from Heat 1, it goes without saying, there's going to be a bit of drama. There's going to be a bit of controversy. That's what makes the Heats fun. And I think Heat 2 will have plenty of that today. I think the Annas did a great job of breaking down just some of the interesting dynamics between teams. I think there's a lot of teams who we've been waiting for them to finally have that performance that makes us go, okay, this team is the real deal. There's no better time than now to start getting into the flow of things, especially with the finals next weekend.
And with the audio cue from the bus horn, you guys already know what time it is. Game 1 underway for HEATS 2. Rolling into this one very early on. The scene has somewhat been set, but the standard, I think, has very much ample opportunity to rise here today, Levin, because everybody's trying to stake their claim for that battle bus in the finals. Adapter gonna get the slide off, Go's gonna go down. It's all up to Tayson now to try and clutch this one out. And Tayson even exchanged, but he's just so hurt. He's just too low. And Adapted, he'll get the siphon off of the finish now, but it's a full wipeout here in game 1. Xeri, Adapted, they fought out, and Squibbly Shores is all theirs.
That really feels like a dagger to my chest, especially when it comes to, you know, 11-2K commentating Tayson in EU FNCSs. It's been a combination I've always enjoyed throughout my career, and so it's never a great look to see them struggling.
Big W for me to start it. What the fuck?
Come back. We were anticipating that off-spawn fight a lot before. To see it so quickly like that is definitely a rough start. Throughout the rest of the lobby though, plenty more shaping up, plenty more fighting to come, Taka.
I think what also makes the fights over towards Frigid Fortress a little bit more interesting is just knowing for the teams landing here that technically speaking, with Vika Malabuka having to play through Last Chance Qualifier, there is a real opportunity for whoever might qual through today. If it's one of these teams from Frigid, they might have that all to themselves. You never know what can happen next. And so I think for Classy and Keel, they really want to lock in for this.
It's good to see Velo and Mr. Savage already off to an active start.
I open that match started.
Velo being trusted
at
here
the team. Not know
to
the
be
name.
that missing piece in the puzzle to allow us all to be able to get to watch Mr. Savage back at Alan in 2026. And like you said, there's going to be plenty of action taking place here in that Frigid Fortress area. Noah Riley and Reason, one of the newer combinations. I say newer combinations, but it is a very old combination when it comes to EU history. Both players looking to try and get back to their best form.
Things looking a little bit scary right now for Savage fans. They are much lower in the HP department than what they would like to be, and that's going to force them to kind of come to a little bit of a pause now before they choose to redirect. But scenes are shifting elsewhere across the map. Misha and Korra.
Oh no.
Misha having already witnessed teeny success in yesterday's
no.
competition. I mean, former teammates, but now
Are
they
you all-
were not expecting this from Ghosty and Glove, but the lurk has been a total
How you made
without
that?
those kinds of shots. You need to connect, and now the opportunity, it's just been completely spoiled. Korra and Misha, they'll have plenty of chance to recover here.
Yeah, best case scenario for them to
How
get
you
out
missed
unscathed.
that.
Again, when you're looking for lurk plays like that, ultimately, you know, you're relying on your element of surprise, but it means nothing if you can't really connect. And so, a learning lesson there. Kira and Apple, not as hectic of an early game for them here at Four Fields.
Wouldn't expect the Four Fields to be all that bumping either. They do have it uncontested, but it's nice to see it as a legendary drop because, as you know, a little bit of a buff comes into play whenever the legendary POI is chosen in a round. And so for Kiro and Upple, want to see how they actually translate this later on.
Yeah, I think the key thing is, again, when you're a team like them with as much experience as they have, you want to be in and out of the heat stage as quickly as possible, right? Make the games count where you get the favorable zones, you get the favorable loot, and leave it to the rest of the lobby to deal with whatever comes next. Vanya and Wox, a team who I think will be wishing that they would have had a better start to the year. When you look at how competition has been for them throughout divisional cups, it's not been as successful. Things have started to improve as we headed into the season. And I think now the biggest test they would have faced together as a duo.
They're not the only ones, though, that I think are really trying to sort of prove themselves after a bit of a shaky start. One thing that does make me relatively optimistic, though, for Seti and Rax, who have been in a rather similar position, is the fact of knowing that Rax has known internet issues leading all throughout the offseason and the divisional cups that he experienced. I mean, he was quite literally streaming from a hotspot, right? So I do believe that word on the streets is that Rax has gotten a little bit more of a stabilized internet situation.
Why you
which
say
I
that?
think
Nah,
would
he
bode relatively well for him and
I
Seti
got
in
it right
today's
now.
competition.
Damn far, he loud
Absolutely.
and not made
I mean,
final
again,
because
the games
that.
are finite. You only have the 5, so you don't want to be in a situation where maybe you have 1 or 2 that you aren't at your optimal performance level for whatever the reason.
And while we have, I think, you know, a little bit of, I don't want to call it hesitancy, but clearly the lobby is still trying to sort itself out in terms of teams that didn't go for those immediate 50-50 off-spawn contestations, but drawing things back to, you know, seeing the early departure of Tayson and Ghost, knowing that that duo is now willing to take the immediate 50-50. How do you think that kind of changes their game plan moving forward?
Well, I think ultimately, you know, they've had a lot of off-spawn fights this season, right? And so it comes down to trusting in the preparation you've done. And at the end of the day, they would have came into the day believing they are the better off-spawn players. And so you just have to go through and show that in that next game, whether that be through better drops, you know, looking for a quicker pinch when it comes down to it. I think ultimately, you know, they got beaten out down to just, again, out-dropped, better loot. Those things happen. Don't rip up the game plan just because it failed in maybe 1 or 2 games. You have to stick to what you've prepared. Kaduo and Trexo, we obviously big these guys up as a potential sort of German-speaking team who German fans could be looking to maybe be a source of joy for them at the Dusseldorf Summit Major.
Yeah, I would imagine that the Amar watch parties are definitely going to be showing a whole lot of support towards some of these German duos that are competing here today. But a handful of teams checking back in on them. Dora and Exercito, they seem like they're fully aware of the fact that they've got Glub and Gosi just ahead of them, but it doesn't seem like they're all that interested in a fight just yet. I mean, with the way that Net Search now plays a part here, Levin, the big interest for all of these duos is obviously you get your tags, but you don't receive any in response. And when you're already sitting 368 damage above the threshold, you don't really need to compromise yourself with any sort of open peeking. They can still just look to prioritize their rotations, but you've got to keep an open eye back. Surge Tower is still popping off in the distance. And 1 tag's not going to be too much to deter Dora just yet, but it's still enough that you kind of need to keep yourself wary of your surroundings.
Yeah, ultimately, these guys understand the advantage they have, and so it's about keeping it. You want to play the safe game. If you have to invest in materials to sort of avoid congestion at times, you will do it. And so it's nice to see them get out of that situation. Not completely unscathed, but not too bad for wear.
Machak and Prahawa also just steadily trying to work their way into this next edge of zone, but teams that are already based up on elevation definitely making their presence known. Gonzo did a great job there.
Yeah, it's easier for these guys, right? Going through the forest, you have a lot more natural cover to help you out. They're able to follow the ravine here and move in, and you can see how aware they are of where the bases are, right? And so they definitely have that route prepped and planned to be able to get into the zone and avoid some of those teams that made it in earlier.
A little bit of a look back. Vanya and Wox. Well, this is one way to establish Surge, that's for sure. Triggs just an absolute wrong time to try and disembark from height, but Zyron also getting pieced up along the way. And Vanya walks, definitely feeling really good about their current situation, Levin, especially with the way that the zone has started pulling more towards their favor and knowing that they have those eliminations online.
Yeah, look, Trix made probably quite a big mistake there, testing Vanya's straight line aim. One of the players who, again, for so many years in EU has showcased his ability to hit shots like that with ease. Think back to the days with him and Swizzy when they won their FNCS, and it was Swizzy with the mythic AR, and at times I would have thought maybe Vanya would have taken it with how good he can be in situations like that, showcasing it here in this lobby. And speaking of Swizzy, it's almost like the observers are just tapped in with me right now, man. Oh my God, it feels good to be back. Swizzy and Pixie sitting in a nice spot here, based up, not much to do, but that's a good thing for them at this point in the game.
Yeah, sometimes it is best to just play a little bit more patiently, especially when you are in such a strong elevated position. They know that they have the ability to cut off some of these teams that are going to be pushing in more from that northwest side of things. So Kaiser's Gonzo, one of those duos that's definitely going to have to be very cautious with how they proceed. But Callum, Avalo, caught up for a moment here. They're not the only ones. Have to imagine that some of these teams still lingering around Battlewood Boulevard, likely struggling for Surge themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously seen such a big evolution in Storm play over the years, and especially in recent seasons. We've just come from a season where there was plenty of people actively trying to play in Storm, and so it's become a much more viable strategy, one that more players are looking to execute on. But like you said, a lot of those players will be in situations where they are actually struggling for Surge, and so maybe not better off being in the Storm at the moment.
And I know it's one thing to survive a triple contest soft spot. It didn't look like things were getting too over-aggressive by any means for where Velo and Savage are actually landing. But at the same time, Levin, it has very clearly impacted their loadouts. I mean, this is not an endgame loadout right now from Savage. Nazix, on the other hand, though, they've got to just deal with what's right in front of them, and that is all-out survival. Lovero gonna look to play some supportive measures here, but with the material count so incredibly low, they don't really have the capability to take this outright fight just yet with Clapsy and Killed, but they might not have many options because they're going to need a refresh if they want their game to continue.
Yeah, ultimately, desperation has to start to kick in, and so you see Nazix here, he's looking to force the issue, right? He's trying to claim space, try to get aggressive, try and force a mistake from Clapsy. And while he does that, they're gonna actively look to keep a hold of the great standing they have. And as long as they don't make too many mistakes here, they do have control of the situation, even though they're playing quite defensively, making more space and maybe investing a bit too much into things. Clapsy with a bit of panic potentially. Nazix, though, not able to close much distance at all right now.
I think Clapsy also wanted to make sure he didn't get cut off while he left Kel to just take over from a separate angle. For a moment, it looked like Lovera and Nazix were setting up a really nice pincer onto Clapsy, but instead 180 one more time. And it's even worse still knowing that they were already below so much on Surge. Meanwhile, Clapsy, 783 above. The only pressure they're experiencing right now is to make sure they don't go down too soon. But Lovera and Nazix, the desperation is taking over. They're just trying to jump into whatever box they can find. Now getting ticked away with Surge entirely. Is Clapsy just looking for the finishing blows, and he'll find it onto Nazix. And Lovera, just a nice, clean shutdown. That's exactly what they needed.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think they just missed their window of opportunity, right? There was a moment where you highlighted there was a potential for the pinch, and they didn't capitalize. They allowed the other team to regroup, and it sends them right back to the lobby as a result of it. More fighting to be done, though. We're seeing here still players down on Surge, and Janice has to make sure he's not on the receiving end of a hungry duo. He needs damage dealt himself now after taking a bit too much there.
Oh no, what's happened to Vanya and Blocks though? Vanya, all by his lonesome, Swizzy and Pixie. Friends to enemies, it's not personal, it's business on the Fortnite battlefield here though, Levin, but Pixie and Swizzy are going to be an absolute menace right now for Vanya to deal with, and it does seem like he's kind of scurried away for the time being, but surely Swizzy, Pixie, they know he's hurt, they know they've got him rather isolated, and there's only so many places left for him to run.
Yeah, and ultimately, as difficult as it may be now, Vanya, he's got to take a stronger stance. And you see him trying to reclaim space. Swizzy and Pixie, when they're at their best, it's like a grizzly bear, man. You don't want to start limping in front of the bear. It's only going to keep hunting you down. And so for now, he'll have to figure out just how he's going to move through this game without Wox. And you see him trying to, again, focus attention elsewhere onto Zuma and Ned's duo. Deep in the storm though, Cheatin and Janice finding a way to get out of their Surge troubles.
Kido and Trexer can't say the same, though. They are getting absolutely lobbied right now. Savage and Bello similarly trying to duke it out for their lives, and they will come out on top, but they're still below in terms of the overall damage threshold. They're going to have to continue forcing this fight. Kido, Trexer, they're so incredibly injured, but it's not like Savage and Bello have the same insight that we do. They need to try and find a way to capitalize on this opportunity. Trexer and Kido have absolutely no way to heal, and with the Surge just continuously battering away at Bello's HP, Savage's HP, they have to act now.
Yeah, time is ticking. It really isn't in their favor. But the one benefit they do have is they're in a position where teams will start to rotate in towards that side of the zone. And so you see Savage looking, he's taking shots at a team that's already based up. He needs to wait for the teams to start running in. And you can see they start spotting them there. Maybe not the most optimal elevation to get angles, right? You see there's not much, but there are players starting to run into zone and they just can't really get their eyesight on them. Still gonna look again, another edit opened to just try find that window of opportunity.
But what they're going to need is to secure some body loot on top of everything else. Kaiser's, Gonzo, Trexer, Kido also applying a little bit of pressure here. But they've got to be so cautious of how they actually make those edits, because one tag and that could spell the end of them too. Bello and Mr. Savage, meanwhile, still hanging out underneath. And just like you mentioned, they're just waiting for those teams to push in.
Yes, really unfortunate they have Trex and Kido above them, but they don't realize how low they are, right? Otherwise, in that situation, you want to build up there. Just give yourself better vision of the lobby. And unfortunately, there is just a team there on very low HP above them. Now they're stuck on low HP as well, as they continue to tick away. And so again, the issue's for Savage is going to try and jump in the box, and it's not going to work for him. He will fall, not without getting a bit of damage dealt though, but it's not enough for Bello to stay in it. Two fan favorites going down. And once again, the difficulties of Surge in this meta, Taco.
No one is really giving any sort of wiggle room either. Trexer, Kido, they've realized though that this is their time to begin trying to elevate themselves too.
Yeah, I don't know what the play is for these guys here. With such low HP, you really just have to cross your fingers and hope you get a gift from the Fortnite gods right now and just have a player fall into your box. They don't have a foot to stand on here. Oh my goodness, they're gonna go for the pickaxe plate.
He's trying to do what he can, but Trexer, he might even be better off coming off of the rebound if he's actually successful. He'll have more HP than what he was working with originally, but this is absolute worst case scenario right now for Trexer and Kido. Every single step they make could just very well be their last. But O'Reilly, a couple of tags that he sent his way. Kido still on only 5 HP. Trexer down to his last 14 builds, and finally the rest of the lobby starting to look back at some of these late arrivals into zone. And Trexer, Kido, they can't stand the heat. They will finally hit the end of lobby 1.
Yeah, and I think that one went just how most people would have expected it to. Reason, all right, Reason. He still got it.
Can't ever really count Reason out. He always finds a way. Like to believe that just as Vanya, 392 above, which is relatively impressive, given the last time we saw him was kind of sandwiched between several different duos, but he still managed to squeeze away from Swizzy and Pixie here. More insights though as to what's taking place elsewhere. Jew and Country, great refresh there, but whether or not they'll be able to actually pick up the materials, that's another case entirely. It seems like it's so difficult for teams to actually collect the goodies off of these eliminations whenever the lobby starts to get so congested and falling into itself.
Yeah, this is a really interesting situation. You see the timing Cheatin and Janice are looking for, right? Waiting for those players to rotate ahead so they can continue to just build on these elevated layers. Looking in their zone right now, looking comfortable. No O'Reilly and Reason. We've already seen them try and get active, try capitalize on some of these players rotating in. And it looks like he'll be successful there. No O'Reilly and Reason gonna continue to be a threat to this lobby.
Jew and Country though, holding down middle ground temporarily, but they do not have a whole lot of HP. They're going to need to force a fight. They need a refresh of some sort. Cheatin and Giannis, though, on the high ground, but they'll send themselves straight towards front side of zone, but they've managed to at least take over a little bit of an elevated position. Vanya underneath, though, just fighting for his life. Doesn't realize that his back wall is getting pressured, and now big shot onto Faded. That's going to be a huge lifeline here now for Vanya if he can actually collect onto the Siphon, gonna tick through, but just taken out the moment that he makes his move forward.
And it's going to leave Drew in a similar spot to what we saw with Vanya. Looking to solo clutch, breaking his way through the builds, and hoping he can just find someone in a worse position than him, and he will. And that will be one. The rollaway gives him an extra tick in the storm, but he'll be able to get the Siphon and move his way towards the front side. And he has to hope now that he can continue to hit shots like that one.
Just seems like Swizzy and Pixie's full-on intentions are to just take advantage of these teams rolling through the low ground. Everybody just so low on builds. That's going to be another elimination. Fourth for Swizzy in this lobby, trying to make his way forward from the backside of zone, but they seem content for the time being, at least. Unfortunately, that Siphon doesn't come into play. Didn't take the tick from Storm in time, so now to catapult himself forward. Overhead, Werix, Dandapuzo never had a chance to see it coming, but Swizzy, he's just too low. He's gonna have to drop to ultimate low. Is able to reunite with Pixie, but they are in a very tough position here, Levin.
They're gonna have to strengthen up if they're gonna be able to face off against Werix and Dandapuzo up on height. These two teams feel like the strongest in the lobby right now, and it's everybody in between trying to change their fate. Swizzy, Pixie still controlling space on the low ground. Anybody that drops down is entering their line of sight, and Swizzy will go down. Cheating will hit the critical shot, and so that turns the game on its head. Pixie now as a solo, trying to clean up the players in the storm. And he's gonna move to the front side, try grab his bearings while players continue to rotate in. All of a sudden, for Dandapuzo and Werix, things are looking easy, breezy up above, but they need to make sure it doesn't slip out their hands.
But you still got Cheatin and Giannis still trying to see if they can confirm this lobby #1 victory royale. Pixie's gonna do the damage. Spoiler to Werix and Dandapuzo with that knock. Giannis with the finishing blow, and Werix eliminated. So Giannis and Cheatin, we've got a German duo that's going to be in our Major 1 finals. That's for sure, Levin.
Wow, Janice and Cheatin, they were looking to play height in the early moving zones, and it was taken off of them by Dandapuzo and Werix. Those guys made it look easy, but Janice and Cheatin come through and steal the game. Desk, you gotta break that one down for us.
I love that, stealing the game, but do you agree with Levin to Carter, or was this the game plan from Giannis all along?
Well, I don't even know what the game plan was. That last-minute switch-up still has me. I was like, okay, Werix, Dandapuzo, you know, they've been hyped for quite a while now. It's looking like a quick clean-up for them. They're gonna win the game. And all of a sudden, Giannis Cheatin, close it out, get the VR, German player qualified in the first game. It's what you love to see, Minnie.
Yeah, we spoke about them at the beginning of the show, didn't we? We spoke about how Giannis in particular hasn't necessarily had the greatest performances as of late, particularly in 2025 when it came down to trios. Left off in a really good spot in duos, picking up where he left off here as well with a great performance here in game #1, soaring straight to the major finals. I mean, what I really like about the way that these guys play this was, yes, they tried to go for height in that 9th zone. We saw Swizzy there on second height as well, but it's very easy in that moment to get tunnel visioned on trying to play height, trying to stay up there for as long as possible. But they shockwave down, they made their move, and they went down and they stuck together whilst doing so. It's so difficult to do that without just trying to hold on to height. And when they got down there to Carter, they absolutely fragged out.
That they did. Throughout the Div Cups, they were always kind of on the middle end of the leaderboard. They couldn't quite get in that top 10, in that top 5, but now that FNCS has begun, they are locked in, and they have put themselves right into the major finals. You can just see the shots that both players were connecting. I think they even got up to double-digit elims there in the end. What a performance.
I mean, you saw it right there as well from Giannis, just the experience to go into that storm, didn't have the heals, didn't need the heals, used the time just to let everyone else get in ahead of him, and then just snuck in the back of that other player to get that elimination. You don't get that if you're a new player in the lobby and you're a new player to FNCS, so experience showing right there.
Oh, you guys got plenty of experience. I'm going to be picking your brains after this short break, so guys, don't go anywhere.